Welcome to Empowering Innovators, the show where we'll talk about innovation and disruption in many different industries. Today we have with us Anshul Asawa, the Global Head of Sales and Transformation in Unilever's Home Care division. Hi Anshul, how are you today?
I'm very good, Patrick. Thanks for having me here.
So Anshul, today we're talking CPG.
Yes.
Your industry, your world. A lot of things are changing in the CPG domain. We see that people are becoming more conscious of basically the products that they use. You have more and more startups entering the industry. We see also some activist investors happening, taking place and stuff in your industry. Can you explain how the industry has changed in the last 5 to 7 years?
Indeed, Patrick, you're right. There are many changes that are impacting our industry. But if I look at it from a consumer lens, there are many developments that have happened, especially over the last few years, which we in CPG industries have to be cognizant of. I think the first and foremost is that we recognize that people are now living very differently. You look at the amount of urbanization that's happening around the world. People are moving from rural areas to cities, so therefore they are living in homes and apartments. The second thing that you're witnessing is that more and more women are working now compared to what was happening in the past. And this especially you see in the D&E world, where the number of women employed has gone up tremendously. And of course, the third thing is that there's a large generation of millennials, who are now reaching that stage of being able to purchase things, be economically independent, who are influencing in a very different way what they want to use and what they want to consume. So there's this generation which we call as, people who say basically, I want this, I want it here, I want it now. So therefore, with that kind of a mindset that's happening around the consumer world, we know that we have a very demanding and a different kind of consumer profile. The second thing which I think all of us recognize is the way digital has entered into our lives. So the way the consumers today engage with each other, with products and brands is very different. So therefore, that's completely changed the way organizations like us, have operated. And lastly, I think you touched upon this point, that there's this growing consciousness that our environment is under stress. So there's a battle against plastics that you see in media, but also in the consumer consciousness. You see people talking about chemicals and what kind of chemicals come into their homes, a lot of discussion around waste. So many different changes which are happening in the consumer world, which is impacting our CPG industry.
Right. And I guess those changes means they bring opportunity, but probably also some challenges. I mean, Unilever is a global company with almost 180,000 employees in there. Can you give some examples on how you're dealing with these changes in maybe education or guidance of your team members, changes that are happening in your business units, in your industries?
So absolutely. So as you say, the consumer shifts, the consumer changes bring in challenges, but therefore also bring in a lot of opportunities for CPG industries to adapt themselves. So the change, for example, in the digital space, of course, has its challenge of being able to engage with people in multiple touch points in the digital world. But the reality is also, for the first time in history, we are able to now almost segment consumers up to an individual and be able to target relevant messages as per their needs. So that's a big change, but also a big opportunity. When you talk about plastic and waste, there's a huge opportunity for us as an industry to transform our business by moving into what we call as an agenda which has less plastic in it, for example, or better plastic. So the whole thing about PCR, recycled plastic usage in our bottles, or maybe eventually no plastic at all, in our products. So once you are able to provide such kind of products and solutions for consumers who are now worried and concerned about such issues, you are hopefully able to open up new business opportunities for the industry.
So sustainability has always been a huge topic within the Unilever organization. I know that from working with you and with your colleagues. When and why was this chosen? Was this already done quite some time ago? And how do you see sustainability combining itself with maybe innovation?
So I think what we believe is that Unilever actually started off as an organization which had somewhere an agenda around sustainability and betterment for the society, the larger society in its DNA. We of course branded it as Unilever Sustainable Living Plan about 8-9 years back. But we were already an organization which was driven by this notion that
in its DNA, basically.
In its DNA, that it's not just about products and selling more products and profit alone, but it is also about the positive impact that we are able to make to the society. Yeah. So that was already ingrained. So therefore, when we brought in the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, we basically geared the whole organization, all aspects of the organization, whether it was the marketing side, R&D side, or the supply chain side, or the customer side, the way we would want to have our brands engage with consumers and with our customers would be in a far more sustainable way, because what we have recognized, I think all of us now recognize, that the way we have been consuming resources in the world is not sustainable anymore. We talk about the Earth Day. The Earth Day, I believe now is 1st of August, which basically means that from that date onwards, we start consuming resources from this earth and not putting resources back into it. So these are the kind of challenges we have to recognize, not just as a CPG industry, but the entire business, and work towards solving for issues around this.
And if you look at innovation, can innovation basically accelerate the way we deal with sustainability and taking care of our planet in a better way?
Absolutely, Patrick. I agree with you, because I think, when you talk about innovation, what is really innovation? It is about doing the things that we have been doing in the past in a far more better way. Either this is more cost effective or more sustainable or gives a better, let's say, experience to our consumers. So indeed, innovation will play a very big role in this.
That's great. Hey, if you look at Unilever, it's very strongly seen as a company, as I see it, as a company that's very strong on the product innovation side. That's in the DNA of the company. If you look at let's say, the scale-up and the startup world, creating new products is quite complicated. So they come from often a different angle, using a business model to enter the market, a new business model. So the innovation at startups and scale-ups is very often about business model innovation, which is followed by some products, maybe digital products or physical products. How do you make a distinction within the company between product innovation and business model innovation?
So I think this again is more recent thinking, and I think has been influenced a lot by the consumer trend of moving more and more towards the digital economy. So traditionally Unilever, and not just Unilever, I would say other CPG companies also have been used to driving innovation in a certain way. So we call these as, let's say, either a Horizon 1 innovation, which is basically about improving our existing products. Or you could call it as, let's say, a Horizon 3 innovation, which is, in the more disruptive kind of areas. So as an example, we were selling laundry powders in most of the markets. So that's, let's say, a way of doing business, a way of giving consumers a product which will help solve their need to do, clean laundry. However, when you are able to give them a product like liquid instead of a powder, that we would call as a disruptive innovation, which is an Horizon 3 innovation, whereas improving the efficacy of the powder, making it better or cheaper, is a Horizon 1 innovation. We haven't really focused on what you call as the business model, or you might call as a Horizon 2 kind of innovation. And this is an area where we have now started focusing on. I don't think we are still best in class on it, nor is the rest of the CPG industry. But if the consumer is moving in this direction, we need to understand this and be able to serve them better through new business models. And most of those will be in the digital space.
So you're moving into this area. We're doing some things there also together, which are almost like entrepreneurship kind of programs, where we search for new business models related to the areas where Unilever is successful and active in. Why have you decided to go into this direction and to look at maybe more from an entrepreneurial point of way and organizing this a little bit beyond the core, or sometimes even outside of the core, to see if you can come up with new innovations that can serve your customers, Unilever's customers, better?
So I think, so one is, of course, the trends were very clear for us, that if the consumers are moving in a very different space, then we need to be able to do things differently. Traditionally, the way we have been innovating would not have served us in this particular space, especially when you're talking about hyper segmentation of consumers and their needs. So I think that was one very clear need. The second thing is also that, we have realized that a lot of the trends and new segments, new consumer issues are best done by understanding the consumer needs in a local market. Yeah. So as a result, a couple of years back, we started in Unilever what was called as the Connected for Growth program, which was driving entrepreneurship at a local level.
Yeah.
Marketeers in a local market understanding local issues and then trying to figure out solutions for those local needs. And as a result, working with the Unilever made us realize that there were certain tools and capabilities that we would be able to bring into our Connected for Growth program. And as a result, the marketeers that we have now have been able to drive many initiatives, looking at those local consumer needs and driving them better in the marketplace.
If you look at those local initiatives, which are basically your internal, it's your exploration engine, you're launching internal startups with internal employees. Obviously, they have different challenges than the execution engine where you're driving the daily business. If you look at leadership, driving both of these sides, smaller, high potential growth businesses compared to the execution engine, which basically has to deliver each month and each quarter because you're on the stock exchange. What is the role that leadership plays in these two domains? And can you maybe give some examples how they're different, how leadership, let's say, acts or guides smaller new initiatives compared to driving forward the execution engine?
Yeah, so I think, yes, you have to do both of them because as we are recognizing more and more, you can't just rely on the core engine. You need to get the new engine to fire as well if you have to remain sustainable in the future as a business. So I think the key thing is that as far as the core business is concerned, we have to make sure that we optimize it to the best level possible. The efficiencies, the execution around the core business has to be good, and finally that is what gets us our salaries as well, right? So therefore, if that business falters, nothing else matters.
You have a different challenge then, right?
Absolutely. So as a leadership, we have to make sure that the processes are in place, optimization programs are in place. We are able to improve, of course, incrementally every time that you are dealing with our core business. But when it comes to the new business, or as I might call it as engine 2 for the organization, the mindset has to be very, very different. First and foremost, the leadership itself has to role model, and show the importance of these initiatives. So therefore, getting engaged with consumers themselves to understand these new problems. Then, of course, having a team which is empowered to be able to go understand and then build solutions around these problems. And then finally, I think recognize the fact that you will need to take some risks. You will have some failures. Recognize, in fact, reward some of those worthy failures so that in the organization there is this culture which gets built wherein you need to understand these new problems, you need to understand these solutions. And of course, if you fail sometimes, that's fine. We learn from them and move on.
So this is the startup mindset from leadership, right? I mean, we started this journey together about 2.5, 3 years ago. Basically on the European organization first. And now we're seeing that the global organization of Unilever is embracing this new way of thinking. We actually call it Lean Like a Startup. It's branded as a Unilevers program, which is now rolling out across the globe. Unilever is a huge company, right? This doesn't change overnight. It's not like in 6 months or not even 12 months. It's a continuous process. Have you seen things really changing over the course of the last, let's say, 18, 24 months since we've been pushing this, not just on the local organization here in the Netherlands and maybe just across Europe, but on a global level? Can you give some examples of what you're seeing, where maybe there are also some challenges?
So Patrick, I think I would say that because of the trends that we were seeing very clearly that were happening in the marketplace, the way customer trends were moving, the Connected for Growth program was started off in Unilever. And I think the Unilevers program came in at the right moment for building the capabilities that are needed, which maybe to some extent were lost in the last few years in the markets, to really go closer to the consumers, understand their problems, and then be able to, in an agile way, figure out solutions which could be landed in the marketplace. Today, there are hundreds of examples of how the Connected for Growth program in Unilever has helped build back that marketing muscle, that consumer centricity, back into the organization. Whether we talk about some of the initiatives that we have done with you, for example, less, or for that matter many other simple small initiatives at a country level, or for that matter, for example, landing our most recent innovation in a completely new category, which is the dry wash category called Day 2. These are many examples which have actually used the whole lean startup methodology. And as I say, the realization 3 or 4 years back that we needed to do things differently. Connected for Growth program coming in and impacting the whole organization, and then of course the Unilevers program helping us in building that capability is something which I think is now traversed across the organization. Of course, these things can take many more years to go and impact. But what has happened very clearly is that because it has been so well driven from the top, I think it is getting embraced much faster than what you would expect in a typically large corporate like Unilever.
Yeah, I think you address here a really important topic, is that driving this forward from, let's say, leadership level and explaining why Unilever is doing this and why it's important for Unilever's customers is crucial, right? The backing is needed from the top, and the vision is needed to drive this through a huge organization like Unilever. And I think you've accomplished already quite a bit there in a quite short time period with 170,000, 80,000 people across the globe. One of the things that we're seeing out there is that there is sort of like a battle for talent out there, right? And these entrepreneurship programs can be seen by the market as sort of like an employer branding, saying, listen, at Unilever, you can have a great career in the mothership, but we can also give you almost like an entrepreneurial career path. Can you give some examples of things that you see that are happening in that domain, either from an employer branding perspective and from bringing in talent, really smart talent in there that already thinks different maybe from the start?
So Patrick, I think our experience in this has been that the millennial generation that we have today, does of course like entrepreneurial kind of environment where they can do what they want to, etc. But first and foremost, we believe that one of the biggest things that is influencing people to join an organization is what we call as what's the purpose of this organization. Is this organization driving something larger than selling a product or a package? And that is influencing a lot of people. So in Unilever, you spoke about the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. We believe that over the last few years, the fact that we have the #1 employer branding status in many countries around the world is contributed to a large extent because of the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. Because people believe that here is an organization wherein they can live their own purpose as well, because this organization thinks about sustainability, about making an impact to community, and they would also like to do that in a big way. And this is where their, let's say, purpose could meet up with the organization's purpose. So this, I believe, is one of the biggest reasons why people join. And of course, once they join in, if they see the culture to be an entrepreneurial culture somewhere where they get empowered to be able to meet consumers, understand their problems well, and then be able to solve for them, and then continue to stay with us. So therefore, the way I put it is that they come to us because of our purpose, and they stick with us because of our culture and ways of working.
Well, that's great. One of the things that we discussed over the last year was if you do these internal, let's say, mini speedboats that become potentially in the future a new part of the bigger Unilever, is how to deal with incentive plans for those internal founders. We've run some experiments together there. Can you share maybe a little bit with the audience on how you feel on incentivizing those team members that also take a different risk and they choose a different path, right? Because we don't know if these internal startups are going to be successful, these corporate startups. Can you explain a little bit about how to incentivize or maybe even challenge also the team members if they want to proceed on this path?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting question that you ask here, Patrick, and something that we are still grappling with, to be honest. I don't think we've found a solution. There are experimentations that we do, but I don't think we have found a solution. What we believe at this point of time is that we have, of course, a very rigorous way of remunerating people, rewarding people, based on the kind of role that they perform, whether it is in an innovation kind of a role or it is in a core operations kind of a role. So a lot of the incentive system, their objectives are baked into the way their roles are defined. But I think it's a fair thing to expect that in the future, as things evolve, you will need to possibly adapt the organization's incentive system based on the needs of the employees and also the kind of businesses that we drive in the future.
Right.
But at this stage, I would say that I don't think we have anything concrete to share at this point in time in terms of what we could do. Lots of experiments. We need to sort of.
That's the way we learn, right? We run
Absolutely.
MVPs, and this incentive model is also an MVP, and you have to learn along the way what really sticks and what makes sense for the company and from the team member point of view.
Absolutely.
So Anshul, unfortunately, we're already coming to the end of our conversation, which I really enjoyed.
Same here.
I have some final questions for you. How would you describe the innovation journey that Unilever has been going through in the last few years?
Challenging, but exciting.
Okay. Favorite startup?
Less, of course.
Less, for sure. Book everybody should read about innovation?
Founder's mentality.
Founder's mentality, really good. How do you define success?
I think success is if you're able to satisfy a real consumer need.
So Anshul, a new book just came out by Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, which is called Blitz Scaling. For the audience at home, Blitz Scaling is about how do you basically grow extremely fast. It's a gift of me to you for today. Hopefully you will take some of inspiration back to the mothership and the startups that you're running within Unilever. And I look forward to hear your comments on what you've learned from Reid Hoffman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you so much.